Quite nice.
The Earl of Moray, landowner of Doune Hillclimb, cuts the tape to commemorate the venue's 40th anniversary, and we're in Scotland for the mid-season rounds of the British Championship. It's wet at Doune, but that won't worry local hero Graham White Jr. The former double British champion is out for his first event of the year in his awesome self-built GWR Predator V10. It's still raining as White comes to the line for his first British runoff shot. He qualified second fastest behind Martin Groves, so in front of a partisan Scottish crowd he'll be looking for the win. As the Doune barriers flash past at head height, White's already up into Oak Tree Bend and heading for Garden Gate. But he's struggling for gears. The problems that had dogged the Predator before with its Formula 1 Arrows engine and gearbox have struck again. The car is stuck in third gear and White has to do the rest of the run that way. It's immensely frustrating for the man from Aberdeen who not only won the British title in 2001 and 2002 but who also held the outright record here at Doune for several years. 43.72 is slower than his qualifying time and will leave White down in an unaccustomed 9th place. Martin Groves is the current hill record holder here at Doune. Lying third overall in the championship behind Trevor Willis and series leader Scott Moran, he's really going for it. The track is still treacherously wet, but Groves piles on the pressure, hurling the Gould V8 into Oak Tree and giving it everything up to Garden Gate. Now Groves is travelling at well over 100 miles an hour as he attacks the claustrophobic tunnel. On the brakes for the right-hander at junction and the Gould bursts out of the Doune into the meadow. The car thumps down on the steep rise up to East Bray. Now it's the dash into the woods, and just look at those track conditions as Groves charges into the S's. Just the final left-hander to go now and the dash across the line. It's a great run. 41.22 takes the win, and with Willis bouncing his OMS off the barrier and out of the points, Groves moves into second place on the championship table. There's little improvement in the weather at Doune as Scott Moran comes to the line during the afternoon runoff. The championship leader was beaten in the morning by Martin Groves and he's not about to let that happen again as he fights for grip in the Gould V8. Groves is closing in on the series table but Moran still has a healthy 41-point lead and he intends to keep it that way. This looks quick, and it is. Another win for Moran boosts his series lead still further as Trevor Willis edges Groves out to third place in the runoff. A fourth place for Chris Merrick keeps him in touch with Willis, but Moran is still well in charge of the championship. From the most northerly venue in the British Championship to the most southerly, and with a welcome change in the weather. Booley Bay in Jersey has been in the championship since it started back in 1947. Unlike any of the hill climbs on the mainland, this one's run on public roads closed for the occasion. The start line is down by the harbour front itself, where the paddock is a little cramped to say the least. But it's a unique venue, which always attracts large crowds and a big variety of local cars not often seen at other venues in the British Championship. Here's one on the start line now. Tim Torrode's radical looking Ford Anglia was once owned by Martin Groves, although not quite in this form. Barry Moyniard's Skoda is not quite what it seems. This very special saloon has a sports racing car chassis and Rover V8 power. Lee Vidian's Group A Escort Cosworth is rather more conventional, but still an extremely quick car. So let's take a ride up Booley Bay aboard Iron Price's OMS Suzuki. Away from the start and it's straight into Cafe Corner, always notoriously slippery under braking. Through Cafe and into the second part of the S-bend, it's full power up the long right-hand sweep before the very fast Sleeman's Bend, the quickest part of the course. This is one of the widest roads in British hill climbing, so Ireland takes advantage of that with a wide entry into the left-hand hairpin at Les Platons, where a good exit is essential for the right and left-hand sweeps up to the tightest corner on the course, the famous radio hairpin. Down through the gears, it's full power again up the steep rise to the final hairpin. Once out of that, the finish line's in sight, so Ireland hangs onto a low gear as the OMS flashes under the finish barrier. Tom New leaves the line in a Pilbeam Rover. He set a personal best in qualifying and leads 2-litre rival Paul Hames in the opening runoff. When Hames fails to make radio hairpin in the second shootout, New closes in with a 9th place finish. After swapping wins with Scott Moran at Harewood a couple of weeks ago, Martin Groves is really trying hard to redress the balance at Booley Bay. But handling problems stem his progress. Second and third places are not what he was looking for. This is just not his day. Championship leader Scott Moran took the win from Groves in the opening runoff, and in the afternoon round he'll be anxious for a repeat performance. It's a good launch from Scott and he's early on the brakes for the tricky Cafe Corner. The perfect line through Les Platons sets Scott up for a maximum attack on radio hairpin. There's just a trace of understeer through the hairpin, but he's on the power early for the dash up to the final left-hander. Sliding out of the last bend, the finish banner comes up and 38.77 gives the Gould V8 the win and FTD. Scott Moran strengthens his already vice-like grip on the 2008 championship. Just 2 days later, we're in St Peter Port in the neighbouring Channel Island of Guernsey for 2 more rounds of the British Championship. This is the nearest the series gets to Monaco, with the biggest paddock in the Championship Series spread out along the harbour front. Like Booley Bay, the event is run on public roads closed for the occasion. And as cars roll back down the hill to the paddock, spectators take up their positions on the hill. It's all very informal, but nonetheless efficiently run by Guernsey Motorcycle and Car Club, who run regular club events here and have run a British hill climb round every year since 1973. Karts are very popular here on Guernsey, not to mention being great entertainment. Simon Lanyon's Anderson Rotax is quickest today in a time not far short of run-off qualifying pace. There's also a class for sand racing cars, and here's one of the most way-out machines of the lot. But Steve Marquis is also the record holder in his amazing 2CV and sets the outright pace to win the class as he snakes over the finish line. Special saloons are really popular among Channel Islands competitors, and Clint Blondell's Smithside's Escort is one of the quickest. He's on the pace today too and takes a narrow class win in his big 4.3 litre version. Let's join Iron Price again for another driver's eye view of the hill. Uniquely in the championship, the start line is alongside a brewery, but Iron has no time to stop for a pint as he charges up the hill from the seafront and into the twisting centre section, which weaves its way between banks and sheer rock faces. Through the right-hander in front of the imposing Tares House, and the road sweeps through a series of long right and left-hand bends. The curbs are very low and the drivers make full use of them to make the road as wide as possible. As Iron heads out of the last left-hander and into the 100-mile-an-hour run-up to the final S-bend across the finish, he uses all the road and most of the pavement to get a good line into the final bends. Up over the curb again for the dash over the finish, and the car spins across the line. That final bend is notorious as drivers make a banzai attack on the finish line. Here's Tom New, and he too joins the list of spinners, but he's still managed to qualify for the second time today. What can Joss Goodyear do? Up over the curb into the final right-hander, and he spins as well. But once again he's got a time, and it's good enough for third place in the opening runoff. Now it's Scott Moran's turn. After the double win in Jersey, he's hungry for another, and this time it's all well under control. 28.71 takes the lead, but can Martin Groves respond? Laval de Terres is like a second home to Groves, and he always goes well here. Today is no exception, and he's back in the winner's circle with a 28.25 that won't be beaten today. Now here's local man Paul Buckingham. It's a fine British Championship debut for the Dallara driver, who makes the cut each time. Here's Tom New again. In the points after the opening runoff, this is his second shot and another spin. He's annoyed with that, but he's on the scoreboard again. It's Wallace Mingy's first visit to Laval de Terres, but he's in the points each time in a fine Guernsey debut with the DJ Firehawk. Paul Hames takes the fight to Tom New as always, and today the Dallara driver gets the upper hand each time. Trevor Willis is a little off the leader's pace today, but two solid fourth place finishes keeps him firmly on third spot in the championship. Two runners left in the final runoff, and once again Scott Moran takes the lead. But ever the master of the Terres, Martin Groves slips ahead to take his second win in a row in Guernsey. So after the second leg of the annual Channel Islands trip, Scott Moran extends his comfortable lead over Martin Groves by a single point. Groves is still in there fighting, but by the time scores begin to be dropped, he'll need a string of top finishes to get on terms with a man who's led the championship from the very first round. Trevor Willis is still hanging on to third place, but he too needs consistent high finishes and no mistakes, as both Roger Moran and Chris Merrick are just waiting for the opportunity to get on terms.
Join us after the break for more British Championship hill climb action.